The stars had been talking for a very long time. Earth had been listening. In the year 2167, a young scientist in Argentina pointed her radio telescope at a distant star and heard something that changed everything. It was not random noise. It was not a natural signal. It was a conversation between two alien ships talking about trade routes and cargo prices like truck drivers on a highway. The world went mad for 3 days. Then the government stepped in. Every major nation sent representatives to a secret meeting in Geneva. They argued for 2 weeks straight. Some wanted to respond immediately. Some wanted to hide. Some wanted to prepare for war. In the end, they made a decision that would shape the next 80 years of human history. Earth would stay silent. They would listen. They would learn. They would watch the galaxy like a child watching adults through a keyhole. But they would not speak. Not yet. Not until they were ready. Now it was the year 2247, and Lieutenant sat alone in the Deep Space Monitoring Center in Seoul. The room was cold and filled with the soft glow of computer screens. She was 28 years old, with tired eyes and short black hair. She had worked here for 6 years, listening to alien signals that she could never respond to. Most nights were boring. Aliens talked about the same things humans talked about: money, politics, family problems. Sometimes she heard music from distant worlds, strange and beautiful. Sometimes she heard news reports about wars she would never understand. Tonight was different. Her computer made a sound she had never heard before, a priority alert. She sat up straight and looked at the screen. The signal was coming from something called the Galaxy Council, broadcasting on all frequencies. She translated the message slowly, her heart beating faster with every word. Attention all species. The solar system designated Sol 3, containing the planet locally known as Earth, has been classified as a resource harvest zone. 3 mining fleets have been dispatched. Estimated arrival, 47 standard days. All claims to this system are void. This decision is final. Read the message 3 times. Then she picked up her phone and made the most important call of her life. Admiral Park 1 was sleeping when his phone rang. He was 57 years old, with gray hair and a face that rarely smiled. He had spent his entire career preparing for a moment that most people thought would never come. He answered on the second ring. "Sir," said her voice shaking, "they're coming." 30 minutes later, the admiral stood in a war room deep beneath the mountains of Provence. Around him sat the 12 most powerful people on Earth: presidents, prime ministers, military commanders. They had all been woken from their beds. None of them looked happy. Doctor was the last to arrive. She was Earth's chief diplomat, a small woman in her 40s with gentle eyes and a soft voice. People often made the mistake of thinking she was weak. They were always wrong. "Play the message," the admiral said. They listened in silence. When it finished, no one spoke for a long moment. 47 days, said the American president. "That's not much time." "It's enough," Admiral Park replied. The Russian president leaned forward. "You're suggesting we fight against a galactic civilization. We don't even know how many ships they have." "We know exactly how many ships they have," the admiral said calmly. "We've been counting for 80 years. He pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed the galaxy, with thousands of tiny lights representing alien fleets, stations, and trade routes. "The Galaxy Council controls approximately 400 species," he explained. "Their total military strength is around 2 million ships. However, they are spread across 100,000 star systems. The fleet coming to Earth consists of 200 ships, 12 heavy cruisers. The rest are mining vessels with light weapons." The Chinese president studied the display. "And what do we have?" Admiral Park pressed another button. The display changed to show the solar system. Hidden among the moons and asteroids, tiny blue dots appeared, hundreds of them. 800 warships, he said. built in secret over the past 60 years, every one of them designed specifically to fight alien technology. The room went quiet again. Doctor spoke for the first time. Before we discuss war, we should discuss peace. Perhaps they don't know we're here. Perhaps this is a mistake. They know, Admiral Park said. They've detected our radio signals. They simply don't care. To them, we're animals. Our planet is just another rock to strip for resources. Then we should tell them otherwise, said firmly. Send a message. Give them a chance to turn back. The Admiral looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I agree. We should give them one chance, just one. And if they refuse? The Japanese Prime Minister asked. Admiral Park's expression did not change. Then we show them why we stayed silent for so long. The message was sent 1 hour later. It was short and simple, broadcast on every frequency the aliens used. This is Earth. This system is claimed. Turn back. Lieutenant watched the transmission leave from her station in Seoul. Her hands were trembling. For 80 years, humanity had hidden in the dark, watching and waiting. Now they had spoken their first words to the galaxy. She wondered what the aliens would say back. She wondered if they would laugh. Deep in the asteroid belt, something stirred. Ships that had been sleeping for decades began to wake up. Reactors powered on. Weapons systems ran diagnostic checks. Crews who had trained their entire lives for this moment received their orders and moved to their stations. Captain Lee Bin stood on the bridge of the stealth destroyer. She was 35 years old, tall and thin, with a scar across her left cheek from a training accident. She had never seen combat. None of them had. But she had studied alien tactics for 15 years. She knew how they fought. She knew how they thought. And she knew how to kill them. All stations report ready, her first officer announced. Bin nodded. Good, now we wait. On Earth, Doctor sat in her office, looking out at the night sky. Somewhere out there, alien ships were flying toward her home. They thought Earth was weak. They thought humans were primitive creatures who had never left their own planet. They had no idea what was coming. Had spent her life studying diplomacy. She believed in peace. She believed that all intelligent beings could find common ground. But she also understood something that many aliens did not. Humans were patient. They could wait for years, for decades, for generations. They could smile and bow and speak softly. But when someone threatened their home, when someone pushed them too far, all that patience turned into something else. Something dangerous. She closed her eyes and made a silent wish. She hoped the aliens would turn back. She hoped they would listen to reason. But deep down, she knew they wouldn't. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. Earth had stayed silent for 80 years, not because it was afraid, not because it was weak, but because it was waiting. And now the waiting was over. The Galaxy Council chambers were the largest structure ever built by intelligent life. It floated in space near the center of the Orion Arm, a massive ring of metal and glass that could hold 10 million beings at once. Today, only a few thousand were present, but they represented 400 species from across the galaxy. High Arbiter stood at the center of the Great Hall. He was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms that he used constantly when he spoke. His species had ruled the council for 3,000 years. They were the oldest, and the most powerful. Everyone knew this. Everyone accepted it. Had been High Arbiter for 60 years. In that time, he had overseen the conquest of 100 worlds. Most species surrendered without fighting. Those that fought were destroyed quickly. The galaxy had rules and enforced them. Today, something unusual had happened. Play the message again, he commanded. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. A simple audio wave, accompanied by a translation. This is Earth. This system is claimed. Turn back. The chamber erupted in noise. Clicks, whistles, growls, and sounds that humans had no words for. Raised 2 of his arms for silence. "This is the planet called Earth," he explained. "We have known about it for some time. It sits in an unremarkable solar system on the edge of Council space. The inhabitants are primitive. They have only been in space for a few hundred years. They have never left their own system. They have no registered military, no trade agreements, and no allies." He paused for effect. "And yet they have sent us this message. They claim their system. They tell us to turn back." He spread all four arms wide. "What do you think we should do?" The laughter started small and grew until it filled the entire chamber. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of species, all laughing at the tiny planet that dared to challenge them. Allowed himself a thin smile. This was exactly what he wanted. But not everyone was laughing. Envoy sat in the upper levels of the chamber, watching quietly. She was from a species called the small beings with large eyes and soft voices. Her people were not warriors. They were observers, analysts, collectors of information. The council used them as diplomats and spies. Had been studying Earth for 40 years. She knew things about humans that the rest of the council did not. She knew that humans had split the atom within 50 years of learning to fly. She knew they had walked on their moon using computers less powerful than a child's toy. She knew their history was filled with war after war, each one more destructive than the last. They had killed millions of their own kind and nearly destroyed their planet multiple times. And yet they survived. They always survived. Most importantly, she knew that Earth had been listening to galactic communications for 80 years. They had heard everything: trade secrets, military strategies, political scandals. They knew exactly how the council worked. And they had never said a word. Raised her hand to speak. The laughter slowly died down. "High Arbiter," she said, her voice soft but clear, "I urge caution." Looked at her with mild annoyance. Caution, against a species that cannot even leave their own system. "They can leave their system," replied. "They choose not to. There is a difference." "Explain." Stood up. "I have studied Earth's radio signals for decades. Their technology has advanced faster than any species in Council records. 80 years ago, they were still using chemical rockets. Now they have fusion reactors, artificial intelligence, and materials we cannot identify." The chamber grew quieter. "They have been watching us," continued, "learning from us. Every piece of technology we broadcast, every military tactic we discuss, every scientific paper we publish. They have collected all of it, and they have improved upon it." Waved a hand dismissively. "Even if that is true, they are one planet against 400 species. The mathematics are simple." "The mathematics said the same thing about the rebellion," said quietly. The chamber went completely silent. The rebellion had happened 200 years ago. A single species had fought against the council for 30 years, destroying thousands of ships before they were finally defeated. It had been the bloodiest war in galactic history. "The humans are not the," said coldly. "And you forget your place, Envoy. We did not ask for your analysis. We asked for your silence." Lowered her head. "I apologize, High Arbiter. I simply believe that we should investigate before we act." "There is nothing to investigate. Earth is a resource zone. They have no claim recognized by galactic law. They will submit or they will be removed." Turned to face the chamber. "Does anyone disagree?" No one spoke. "Then it is decided. We will respond to Earth's message with a warning. If they do not comply, the mining fleet will proceed as planned. If they resist, they will be destroyed." He composed the response himself. It was short and brutal. "You have no voice here. Comply or be harvested alongside your resources." On Earth, Doctor received the message in her office in Geneva. She read it 3 times, then sat back in her chair and closed her eyes. She had hoped for something different. A question, perhaps, a request for clarification, something that showed the aliens were willing to talk. Instead, they had responded with contempt. Her phone rang. It was Admiral Park 1. "You've seen the message," he said. It was not a question. "Yes. What do you think?" Opened her eyes and looked out the window at the Swiss mountains. Snow was falling gently, covering everything in white. It was beautiful, peaceful. "I think they've made their choice," she said quietly. "So have we." The Admiral's voice was calm as always. "I'm ordering the fleet to full alert. The miners will reach Neptune's orbit in 36 days. We'll meet them there." Admiral said carefully, "What happens after? Even if we win this battle, the Council will send more ships. We can't fight the entire galaxy." "No," Park agreed. "We can't. But we can make them understand that fighting us will cost more than it's worth. That's all we need. One victory loud enough to be heard across the galaxy." Nodded slowly. "Then I suppose it's time to stop being quiet." "Past time," the Admiral said. "Get some rest, Doctor. The real work starts tomorrow." He ended the call, stayed at the window for a long time, watching the snow fall. Somewhere in the asteroid belt, Captain Li Bin received new orders. She read them on her personal screen, then called her crew to the bridge. "The aliens have refused to negotiate," she announced. "They're continuing toward Earth. Our orders are to intercept them at Neptune's orbit and stop them by any means necessary." Her crew was silent. They had trained for years, but training was not the same as reality. They were about to fight beings from another world. Some of them might die. "I know what you're thinking," Bin said. "You're wondering if we can really do this, if our ships are good enough, if we're good enough." She looked at each of them in turn. "We are. Earth has been preparing for this day for 80 years. Everything we have, everything we've built, it's all for this moment, and we will not fail." Her first officer, a young man named Han Jun, spoke up. "Captain, how many ships are we facing?" 200, we'll have 30. Jun blinked. 30 against 200. Bin smiled. It was not a kind smile. "They don't know we exist. They don't know what our ships can do. They think they're coming to harvest an empty system." She sat down in her command chair. "They're wrong." In the council chambers, High Arbiter had already moved on to other business. Earth was a minor matter, barely worth his attention. In a few weeks, it would be conquered or destroyed. Either way, the galaxy would continue as it always had. He had no idea what was waiting for him in the dark. Envoy returned to her quarters and began composing a private message. She addressed it to no one in particular, encrypting it with codes that only a few beings in the galaxy could break. "If you are receiving this," she wrote, "then you should know the Council has underestimated Earth. I have studied humans for 40 years. They are not like other species. They do not surrender, they do not forget, and they do not forgive." She paused, then added one final line. "I fear we have awakened something terrible." She sent the message into the void and hoped that someone, somewhere, would listen. But it was too late for warnings. The war had already begun. General stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Hammer of Justice, watching the stars slide past. He was a veteran of 12 campaigns, a decorated commander who had never lost a battle. The Council had given him 200 ships to harvest a single planet. It was overkill, and everyone knew it. But wanted to make an example. A primitive species had dared to challenge the Council, and they needed to be crushed completely. No survivors, no mercy, just a broken world to remind the galaxy what happened to those who resisted. Didn't mind. Easy victories were still victories. "General," his sensor officer called out, "we are approaching the outer boundary of the Sol system. Estimated arrival at the harvest target in 18 hours. "Good. Begin scanning for any local defenses." The officer worked his console for a moment. "Sir, I'm detecting nothing. No ships, no stations, no satellites beyond their inner planets. The system appears completely undefended." Nodded. This was what he expected. Primitive species rarely had anything worth worrying about. Their little message about claiming the system had been nothing but empty words, bluster from creatures who didn't understand how small they were. "Maintain formation," he ordered. "We'll proceed to the third planet and begin operations immediately." The fleet moved deeper into the solar system, 200 ships in perfect formation, their running lights creating a constellation of death against the black void. They passed the orbit of Neptune without incident, then Uranus, then Saturn. That's when the problem started. "Sir," the sensor officer said, his voice uncertain, "I'm getting some strange readings." "What kind of readings?" "I don't know, there are echoes, like something is out there but I can't get a clear picture." Frowned, "Equipment malfunction." "I don't think so. Other ships are reporting the same thing." Before could respond, his communications officer spoke up. "General, the mining vessel Bright Fortune has gone silent." "Silent, what do you mean?" "I mean they've stopped transmitting. No distress signal, no explanation, they just stopped." Felt a small chill run down his spine. Contact the ships around them, find out what happened. The communications officer tried. His face grew pale. "Sir, the 3 ships closest to Bright Fortune are also silent, and now a fourth. Sir, 5 more ships have stopped responding." On the bridge of the Captain Lee Bin watched her tactical display with cold satisfaction. 8 ships down, 192 to go. Earth's stealth technology was not magic. It was simply 80 years of careful development, built on the foundation of everything humanity had learned from alien broadcasts. The aliens used active sensors that sent out signals and waited for them to bounce back. Earth's ships absorbed those signals like black holes absorbing light. To alien sensors, they simply didn't exist. The first attacks had been simple. Small missiles, launched from hidden positions, hitting engines and power systems. No explosions, no debris. The alien ships just went dark, their crews suddenly finding themselves floating in dead vessels with no way to call for help. "Target the next group," Bin ordered. "Prioritize the heavy cruisers." Her weapons officer nodded, missiles away. There was one of 30 stealth destroyers hiding in the shadow of Saturn's rings. They had been there for 3 days waiting, watching, and now they were hunting. General was starting to panic, though he would never admit it. In the past hour, he had lost 47 ships, almost a quarter of his fleet, gone without a single shot fired in return. "I want answers," he shouted at his bridge crew. "Where are the attacks coming from?" "We don't know, sir. Our sensors show nothing. It's like the attacks are coming from empty space." Slammed his fist on his command console. "That's impossible. Ships don't appear from nothing." "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "perhaps they were already here, waiting for us." The general went silent. He thought about what Envoy had said in the council chambers. The humans had been listening for 80 years, learning, preparing. What if they had built ships that couldn't be seen? What if they had been watching the fleet since it entered the system? What if this was a trap? "All ships emergency retreat," commanded. "Maximum speed back the way we came." The fleet tried to turn. It was already too late. Commander Ho led the second wave of the attack. His ship, the Silent Thunder, was not a stealth vessel. It was a marine carrier built for one purpose: boarding enemy ships and capturing them intact. The aliens were running now, their formation broken. Individual ships scattered in all directions, trying to escape the invisible death that hunted them. Most didn't make it. Missiles found them in the dark, crippling their engines, leaving them floating helplessly. But Ho's orders were not to destroy. His orders were to capture. "Target that cruiser," he said, pointing at a large alien vessel that was limping away from the battle. "They look like officers, high-ranking. We want them alive." His pilot nodded and pushed the engines to full power. The Silent Thunder closed the distance in minutes. The alien cruiser tried to fight back. Its weapons fired blindly into space, hitting nothing. It was like a blind man swinging at shadows. Ho watched the cruiser grow larger on his. Prepare for boarding. I want everyone armed and ready. The Marines assembled in the launch bay. 50 soldiers in powered armor, carrying weapons that could punch through alien hull metal. They were the best Earth had to offer. They had never seen real combat, but they had trained for this moment their entire lives. The silent thunder matched speed with the cruiser and locked on. Cutting beams sliced through the alien hull. Airlocks forced themselves open, and then the Marines went in. Ho was the first through the breach. The corridor beyond was dark and filled with smoke. Red emergency lights flickered overhead. He could hear alien voices somewhere deeper in the ship, shouting in languages his translator struggled to process. Move, he commanded. Secure the bridge, non-lethal force unless threatened. His Marines spread out through the ship. They moved quickly and efficiently, clearing rooms one by one. The aliens they encountered were not soldiers. They were workers, technicians, officers who had never expected to face combat. Most of them surrendered immediately, dropping their weapons and raising their hands. Ho found the bridge after 10 minutes of searching. The door was sealed, but his breaching charges made short work of it. Inside, he found a dozen aliens huddled together. One of them, taller than the others with insignia on his uniform, stepped forward. He was shaking, but he held himself with dignity. I am Sub-Commander, he said through his translator. I surrender this vessel, please. Do not kill my crew. Ho lowered his weapon. We're not here to kill anyone, not unless you give us a reason. Stared at him with wide eyes. You are human. Yes. But the Council said your species was primitive, that you had no military capability. Ho almost laughed, almost. The Council was wrong. General's flagship was one of the last to escape. Of the 200 ships that had entered the Sol system, only 40 made it out. The rest were destroyed, disabled, or captured. Had lost more ships in 1 hour than most commanders lost in their entire careers. He stood on his bridge, staring at the tactical display that showed the scattered remains of his fleet. His hands were shaking. Send a message to the Council, he said quietly. Tell them they were waiting for us. The humans, they knew we were coming. They have ships we can't see, weapons we can't track. Tell them. He paused, struggling to find the words. Tell them Earth is not what we thought. On the captured cruiser, Commander Ho gathered the alien prisoners in the cargo bay. There were over 300 of them, all sitting on the floor with their hands visible, surrounded by armed Marines. Ho walked among them slowly. He saw fear in their eyes. They expected to be tortured, executed, or worse. Listen to me, he said, loud enough for all of them to hear. You are prisoners of Earth. You will be treated fairly. You will be given food, water, and medical care. You will not be harmed. The aliens looked confused. This was not how conquered species were supposed to behave. Ho stopped in front of Sub-Commander. When this is over, you will be released. You will return to your people and tell them what happened here. Tell them how you were treated. Tell them that Earth does not want war. Looked up at him. Then why did you attack us? Because you came to our home with weapons, Ho said simply. You gave us no choice, but we're giving you one. He leaned closer. Tell your council what mercy looks like. Tell them what happens when they push humanity too far, and tell them this. He straightened up and looked at all the prisoners. They won't see this mercy twice. Captain Li Bin received the final battle reports on her bridge. 160 alien ships destroyed or captured. No human vessels lost. Minimal casualties on the boarding teams. It was a perfect victory, and it was only the beginning. She opened a channel to Admiral Park 1. Sir, the engagement is complete. The alien fleet has been neutralized. Excellent work, Captain. The Admiral's voice was calm as always. Bring the prisoners to Earth. We'll need them for what comes next. What comes next, sir? There was a brief pause. The Council will respond to this. They'll send more ships, many more. We need to be ready. Ben nodded. We will be. She ended the call and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the survivors were fleeing back to their masters. They would bring stories of ghost ships and invisible death. They would bring warnings. But warnings wouldn't save the Council. Nothing would. The Council chambers had never been so quiet. High Arbiter stood at the center of the Great Hall, reading the report from General for the 5th time. His 4 hands trembled slightly. Around him, representatives from 400 species waited in stunned silence. 160 ships lost. A fleet designed to crush an entire planet, destroyed in less than an hour. And not by some great armada, not by overwhelming force, but by ghosts. Ships that couldn't be seen. Weapons that appeared from nowhere. An enemy that struck without warning and vanished without a trace. "This is impossible," said finally. His voice was hollow. "It happened, High Arbiter." General's face appeared on the central display. He looked 10 years older than he had a week ago. "I saw it myself. They were waiting for us. They knew exactly where we would be and when we would arrive. Our sensors showed nothing until it was too late." "How many ships did they have?" "I don't know. We never got a clear count. 30, perhaps, maybe less." 30 ships, against 200, and the humans had won without losing a single vessel. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted at each other in a dozen languages. Some demanded immediate revenge. Others called for retreat. A few suggested surrender. Raised his hands for silence. It took a long time before they obeyed. "This changes nothing," he said, forcing confidence into his voice. "Earth caught us off guard. It will not happen again. We will assemble the Grand Armada, 10,000 ships from 50 species. We will go to their system and we will end this." "High Arbiter," Envoy rose from her seat. Her voice was quiet but carried across the chamber. "May I speak?" Wanted to refuse, but too many eyes were on him. He nodded curtly. "The humans showed restraint," said. "They captured prisoners instead of killing them. They treated the wounded. They sent a message with the survivors. They don't want war." "They destroyed our fleet," someone shouted from the gallery. "A fleet that was sent to strip their planet of resources," replied. "We fired the first shot. We ignored their warning. We laughed at them." She turned to face directly. "They gave us a chance to turn back. We refused. Perhaps it is time to reconsider." Felt his anger rising. "You suggest we negotiate with a species that just killed thousands of our people." "I suggest we talk to them before we lose thousands more." His large eyes were steady. "The humans have been watching us for 80 years. They know our tactics, our technology, our weaknesses. They built ships specifically designed to counter ours. If we send the Armada, they will be prepared, and many more will die." The chamber fell silent again. Could see doubt in the eyes of many representatives. Was getting through to them. He couldn't allow that. "Enough," he declared. "Earth has challenged the authority of the Galaxy Council. They have killed our people and taken our ships. There will be no negotiation. There will be no compromise. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us." He turned to face the assembly. "I call for a vote. All in favor of assembling the Grand Armada and bringing Earth under Council control, raise your signals." Lights appeared across the chamber, a clear majority. "The motion passes. The Armada will launch in 30 days." Sat down slowly. She had tried, it wasn't enough. On Earth, the mood was grim. Doctor sat in a conference room in Geneva, surrounded by military commanders and government officials. They had won the first battle, but everyone knew what was coming next. 10,000 ships, Admiral Park once said, displaying the intelligence on a holographic screen. More than 12 times what we faced before. They're pulling forces from across the galaxy. "Can we beat them?" The question came from the Japanese Prime Minister. The Admiral was quiet for a moment. We can hurt them badly, our stealth technology still works, our weapons are still superior, but 10,000 ships, he shook his head. We would take losses, heavy losses, and even if we won, what then? They would send more. Then what do you suggest? The American president asked. We make the victory so costly that they never try again. We destroy enough ships, kill enough soldiers, that the Council decides Earth is not worth the trouble. Admiral Park's voice was hard. It's not a perfect solution, but it's the only one we have. Doctor spoke up. There might be another way. Everyone turned to look at her. I've been analyzing the Council's communication signals. There are divisions among them. Some species want peace. Some think this war is foolish. If we could reach those voices, support them, we might be able to create enough internal pressure to force negotiation. You want to play politics with aliens? The Russian president sounded skeptical. I want to avoid a war that could destroy both sides, leaned forward. The Council isn't a unified enemy, it's a bureaucracy. Bureaucracies can be influenced. I'm asking for permission to make contact with sympathetic elements, secretly. Admiral Park nodded slowly. It's worth trying, but we prepare for war regardless. If diplomacy fails, we need to be ready. Agreed, said. I'll need a ship, something fast and hard to detect. The Admiral almost smiled. I know just the one. 3 days later, boarded at a secret launch facility in the Pacific Ocean. Captain Lee Bin met her at the airlock. Dr. Bin said, "Welcome aboard." Looked around at the cramped corridors of the stealth destroyer. It's smaller than I expected. Stealth requires sacrifice, no room for luxuries. Bin led her toward the bridge. We'll take you to the neutral zone at the edge of Council space. After that, you're on your own. I understand. They launched within the hour, slipping past alien sensor nets and into the void between stars. For 5 days, studied everything she knew about the Council, looking for weak points, allies, opportunities. On the 6th day, they reached the meeting point. Envoy's ship was waiting. A small diplomatic vessel, barely armed, floating alone in empty space, had taken an enormous risk coming here. If the Council found out she was meeting with humans, she would be executed for treason. Took a shuttle to the alien ship alone. When the airlock opened, was waiting for her. The alien was smaller than had expected. Her skin was pale gray, her eyes enormous and dark. She wore simple robes and no weapons. Doctor said, her translator giving her voice a soft musical quality. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the invitation. I know the risk you're taking. Led her to a small conference room. They sat across from each other, two beings from different worlds, trying to find a way to stop a war. The Armada will launch in 24 days, said. 10,000 ships, 50 species. High Arbiter wants to make an example of Earth. We know, kept her voice calm. We're prepared to defend ourselves. You will lose. Perhaps, but we'll take a lot of you with us. Leaned forward. That's not what I want, Envoy. It's not what my people want. We stayed silent for 80 years because we wanted to be left alone. We didn't ask for this fight. I know, his large eyes were sad. I've studied your species for decades. You are remarkable, terrifying but remarkable. The way you adapt, the way you survive. The Council should have welcomed you as allies, not tried to harvest your world. Then help me stop this. You said there are others who think like you. Bring them together, create pressure from within. Was quiet for a long moment. It's not that simple. Controls the military. He controls the votes. Anyone who speaks against him risks everything. And if the Armada is destroyed, asked, what happens to then? If the Armada is destroyed, is finished. He has staked everything on this war. A defeat would end his power. Paused. But that would mean thousands of deaths, perhaps millions on both sides. I'm trying to prevent that, said. But I need something to work with. Evidence of corruption, records of bad decisions, anything that could turn opinion against him. Hesitated. Then she reached into her robes and pulled out a small data crystal. I've been collecting information for years. Communications, financial records, secret dealings, everything that shows what really is. She placed the crystal on the table between them. This is treason, she said quietly. If I'm caught, I'll be killed. Why take the risk? His eyes met. Because I believe what you said. Earth doesn't want war. You want recognition, respect, a chance to exist in peace. She pushed the crystal toward. I want that too, for both our peoples. Took the crystal carefully. I'll make sure your trust isn't wasted. One more thing, stood up. If diplomacy fails, if the Armada comes to your system, don't hold back. Don't show mercy this time. Hit them so hard that the entire galaxy feels it. Make them understand that the cost of fighting you is too high. Stood as well. We didn't stay silent because we were weak. We stayed silent because we were patient, and patience has limits. Nodded slowly. I hope we meet again, Doctor, under better circumstances. So do I. They parted ways, returned to with the data crystal hidden in her pocket. Captain Ben was waiting for her. Did you get what you needed? Ben asked. Maybe, maybe not, looked out at the stars. We'll find out soon. Back on Earth, Admiral Park 1 made his own preparations. 800 ships moved into position throughout the solar system. Marines drilled constantly. Weapons were tested and retested. Everyone knew what was coming. 24 days until the Armada arrived. The galaxy held its breath. And somewhere in the void, 10,000 alien ships began their long journey toward Earth. They thought they were coming to destroy a primitive planet. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The Grand Armada entered the Sol system like a wave of metal and fire. 10,000 ships in perfect formation, stretching across millions of kilometers of space. Heavy battleships the size of mountains. Carriers filled with fighter craft. Support vessels carrying enough troops to occupy a dozen worlds. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. High Arbiter himself commanded from the flagship Eternal Will. He stood on the bridge, watching the distant sun grow brighter as they approached. This time there would be no mistakes, no mercy, no survivors. All ships maintain formation, he ordered. Full sensor sweep. I want to know the moment we detect anything. His officers worked their stations nervously. Everyone remembered what happened to General's fleet, the ghost ships, the invisible death. They had prepared countermeasures this time, new sensor technologies designed to detect stealth vessels, but no one knew if they would work. High Arbiter, the sensor officer reported. We are detecting energy signatures near the outer planets, multiple contacts. They appear to be waiting for us. How many? Approximately 800, sir. Smiled, 800 against 10,000. The humans were brave, he had to admit, but bravery alone would not save them. Continue advance, all weapons hot. Admiral Park 1 stood on the bridge of the Humanity's flagship. It was larger than the stealth destroyers, built for direct combat rather than ambush. Around him, officers monitored stations and called out reports. Alien fleet is 2 hours from engagement range, Admiral. All ships confirm ready. Yes, sir, 800 vessels in position. Park looked at the tactical display showing the incoming armada. 10,000 lights, moving slowly but inevitably toward them. It was a terrifying sight, the largest force Earth had ever faced. But Earth had been preparing for 80 years. Every ship, every weapon, every strategy had been designed for this moment. The aliens had numbers. Earth had something better. They had patience, they had precision, and they had absolutely nothing left to lose. Open a channel to the fleet, Park ordered. His communications officer nodded. Channel open, sir. Admiral Park took a deep breath. This is Admiral Park 1 to all ships. In a few hours, we will face the greatest test in human history. The aliens think they're coming to destroy us. They think we're weak. They think we're afraid." He paused. "They're wrong." Across 800 ships, crews stopped what they were doing and listened. For 80 years, we watched the galaxy. We learned. We built. We waited. We did not speak because we had nothing to say, but now they have forced us to answer. And when humanity answers... His voice hardened. "The galaxy listens." Captain Lee Bin heard the Admiral's speech from the bridge of the... Around her, her crew was silent, focused, ready. "Captain," her first officer Han Jun said quietly, "stealth generators at full power. We're invisible to their sensors." "Good." Bin studied the tactical display. The alien armada was dividing into attack groups, trying to surround the human fleet. They still couldn't see the stealth ships hiding among the asteroids and moons. "Wait for my signal. We hit their command ships first." "Understood." Bin thought about everything that had led to this moment. The years of training, the first battle against Fleet, the prisoners they had taken and released. All of it was preparation for today. Win or lose, nothing would ever be the same. The two fleets closed the distance slowly. The aliens expected the humans to retreat, to use hit-and-run tactics like before. Instead, the human fleet held its position, forming a defensive line between the Armada and Earth. "They're not running," observed. "They actually think they can fight us head-on." "Perhaps they want to protect their planet," his tactical officer suggested. "Then they will die protecting it," raised a hand. "All ships attack." 10,000 ships surged forward, weapons charging, fighters launching. It was an overwhelming display of force, enough firepower to crack a planet in half. The human fleet didn't move. "Admiral," the weapons officer on the reported, "enemy fleet in range." Park nodded. "Execute pattern Dragon." Across the human fleet, ships began to move, but not forward. They spread out, creating gaps in their formation, opening channels between them. The aliens poured through these gaps, thinking they had broken the human line. They were wrong. "Now," Bin said quietly. The stealth ship struck first. 30 destroyers appeared from nowhere, their weapons firing into the rear of the alien formation. Missiles found their targets. Cruisers exploded. Carriers broke apart. In seconds, hundreds of alien ships were destroyed or disabled. The aliens tried to respond, but more attacks came from different directions. Hidden weapon platforms activated on asteroids and moons, raining fire into the confused armada. Mines that had been planted weeks ago detonated among the alien ships. And then the main fleet counterattacked. Commander Ho led a squadron of marine carriers straight into the heart of the alien formation. His target was the flagship, the Eternal Will. If they could capture, the war might end today. "All units follow me," he ordered. "We're going for the head." His ships punched through the alien lines, taking damage but not slowing down. Human armor was thicker than the aliens expected. Human weapons hit harder. Human pilots flew with a skill that came from generations of warfare against each other. Ho's carrier reached the flagship. Cutting beams sliced through the hull. Marines poured into the alien vessel. "Move," Ho shouted, leading his soldiers through corridors filled with smoke and fire. "Find the bridge." They fought through alien defenders, armored soldiers who died bravely but hopelessly. Human power armor shrugged off their weapons. Human rifles punched through their shields. It was not a fair fight. Nothing about this war was fair. On the Eternal Will's bridge, High Arbiter watched his armada falling apart. 6,000 ships destroyed in the first hour. His fleet scattered, his commanders dead or captured. And still the humans came, relentless, unstoppable. "How," he whispered, "how is this possible?" An explosion rocked the bridge. The doors blasted open, turned to see armored figures pouring into the room, weapons raised. Commander Ho stepped forward and removed his helmet. His face was covered in sweat and blood, but his eyes were calm. "High Arbiter," he said, "by order of Earth Defense Command, you are under arrest for crimes against humanity. Surrender your ship." Stared at him. In 3,000 years of Council history, no High Arbiter had ever been captured. No enemy had ever reached the flagship. This was impossible. But it was happening. "You can't do this," said weakly. "The Council will never accept it. They'll send more fleets, more armies. You can't fight the entire galaxy." Ho smiled grimly. "We don't have to fight the entire galaxy. We just had to fight you." He gestured to his soldiers. "Take him to the brig, treat him well. He's going to be valuable." The battle continued for another 3 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Grand Armada broke and fled, leaving 6,000 destroyed ships behind them. Earth's losses were 200 vessels, heavy by human standards, nothing by galactic ones. Admiral Park, 1, broadcast his message to the entire galaxy. "This is Earth to all species of the Galaxy Council. We did not want this war. We never wanted to speak, but you came to our home with fire. You tried to harvest our world like we were nothing. You laughed at us. You ignored us. You thought we were weak." His voice echoed across 1,000 star systems. "Now you know the truth. We are not weak. We are not afraid. We stayed silent because we were patient. We watched you for 80 years and we learned everything. Your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Today we captured your High Arbiter. Today we destroyed the largest fleet in your history. Today we proved that Earth will never be harvested, never be conquered, never be ignored again." Another pause. "We're not asking for war. We're asking for respect. Give us a seat at your council, treat us as equals, and we will live in peace." His tone hardened. "But if you send another fleet, if you try again to take our home, remember what happened here. Remember the silence you laughed at, and remember what filled that silence when you pushed us too far." He cut the transmission. Captain Lee Bin listened to the Admiral's words with tears in her eyes. They had done it. Against all odds, against the entire galaxy, Earth had won. She looked out at the stars, at the debris fields and the fleeing ships. So much destruction, so much death, but it was over. Finally, it was over. "Captain," Han-Jun said softly, "orders." Bin wiped her eyes. "Set course for home, Commander. We have a lot of work to do." On Earth, Doctor watched the broadcasts from a monitoring station in Seoul. The battle footage, the Admiral's message, the reactions from across the galaxy. Envoy's face appeared on her screen, transmitted from a hidden location. "You did it," said. "Against everything, you actually did it." "We did it together," replied. "The information you gave us, the pressure from the moderate factions, it all helped." "Is finished. The Council is already voting on new leadership. There's talk of accepting Earth's terms. A seat on the Council, full diplomatic recognition." Nodded slowly. "And what about you? Will you be safe?" Smiled, a strange expression on her alien face. "I think so. The new leaders will need voices of reason. I plan to be one of them." "I'm glad." Looked out the window at the night sky. "It's strange. For 80 years we were so afraid of this moment. The day the galaxy noticed us. The day we had to fight for our existence. And now I realize we were never really afraid." Smiled. "We were just waiting for the right time to introduce ourselves." Lieutenant was still at her station in the Deep Space Monitoring Center. She had been there for the entire battle, listening to every transmission, tracking every ship. Now the screens showed victory messages, celebration broadcasts, the beginning of a new era. She leaned back in her chair and let out a long breath. For 80 years, humanity had listened to the stars in silence. They had watched empires rise and fall, wars begin and end, civilizations spread across the galaxy. They had learned everything they could, preparing for a day they hoped would never come. That day had come, and humanity had answered. The galaxy would never underestimate Earth again. Looked at her console. Already new signals were coming in. Diplomatic requests, trade offers, invitations to conferences and summits. The universe wanted to talk to humanity now. She smiled and began logging the messages. There would be time to respond tomorrow. For tonight, she just wanted to enjoy the silence. A silence that humanity had finally earned the right to break.